So I like it. Why don't we talk about this marketing automation checklist insurance edition and preface it with and kind of compare and contrast between, less complex organizations in the insurance space and more complex organizations and what that means. Okay?
Yeah.
Like that, Chris?
Sounds good.
Good. Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com, episode 39, Cam?
45.
45.
Oh.
45. Who do we have?
Chris O'Neill.
Robin Kroll.
Jen Pugsley.
Michael Turksani. All right, got a little stepped on there. We're talking marketing automation. We're talking marketing automation because, I don't know, that's what we do, I guess. Is that what we do around here?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything marketing automation, and this is the insurance edition because we have a hot off the press bunch of research that we did. Well, it kind of is a bunch of research. It's several years and hundreds of meetings and all kinds of in-life deployments and scenarios that have led us to have Jen write a blog about how to go about selecting a marketing automation platform, 7-step checklist on our website, goosedigital.com/blog.
All over LinkedIn too, guys. All over LinkedIn.
Yeah, heavily promoted to our Insurance Canada audience on LinkedIn. So we wanted to go over, we thought this was a good place as people are kind of figuring out their next year and evolving their marketing automation and where they want to go to, step through these 7 items and learn a little bit more about what they mean to the average insurance organization. So maybe we'll start with, a concept that we were talking about earlier, and we'll go around just sort of what does these things each mean to all of us. But this concept of like complexity, so when you're thinking about making a strategic investment in a priority like marketing automation and that type of strategy layer, it's not just selecting a tool. Part of the matching your technology to your needs in many ways from a marketing automation perspective has to do with the complexities in your organization. So for an insurance organization, if you are not terribly complex, meaning maybe your book is 80% weighted within, a certain line of business, and within that maybe heavily weighted within a market or two, and that's really probably going to be one of your biggest bangs for your buck from part of the automation lens. While your system as a result doesn't need to be very complex or have that capability, certainly could use a higher end platform, but at the end of the day, you could probably get away with something that is much more straightforward in your business. But if you have complexity, and that complexity could come from size, we talked about
Brands,
the book itself,
regions.
brands, regions, these types of elements. If you're a network of brokers, all of a sudden, well, hold on, we need a system that's going to work. And that's a lot of what our platform or our experience is. So why don't we just go around? Maybe Chris, we'll start with you in terms of, how do you feel about those two lenses, between the less complex, which doesn't necessarily mean small, but, less complex and more complex lenses as it relates to marketing automation?
Yeah, I would say that most of the conversations that we have, as we sort of get into sort of understanding what the business is, there's usually some kind of level of complexity. In other words, like there's a need definitely to personalize messages across different bands of customers. So even if you've got if you've got an 80, for example, you've got an 80% of your base is on the personal line side, you've got 20% on the commercial, and that's kind of like developed out of your personal book, then it's like, okay, so where is it? And we talk to a lot of people who are looking to focus a lot on the commercial side. Well, that means that they've got sort of they've got a number of different sort of segments that they want to communicate with, which means that a email blast program that's just going to send out the same message to everyone and basically have one simple sort of landing page, etc. That's not going to work, because you're going to need to send those specific messages to those audiences that's going to make sense. That sort of separates. So when you've got a multiple different sort of bands of customers or constituents that you need to speak with, that you need to communicate with, that you need to draw, then you've got that sort of that level of complexity to deal with. That's where you need that sort of more marketing automation leading type of platform that's going to give you that capability and that functionality. That's one aspect.
So I'll come back to Jen after. Robin, did you want to pipe in on
Yeah.
the that, and as it relates to sort of upside and growth?
Yeah, so thanks. That's a great segue. It's like you read my mind there, because if there's an organization that says, you know what, we're not too complex, pretty straightforward. We know who our customers are. We can just send this email blast, pretty straightforward. Well, first of all, I think you're really you're misunderstanding your audience and your customers and what their level of expectation is, because customers, and we've seen this over and over again, customers are not satisfied or happy to be getting that generic one message fits all, and there's a much greater expectation from their insurance provider to have that level of personalization and recommendation. And to me, that goes right away from the simple to the complex. And any organization who says, yeah, we're okay with that simplified, they are missing a lot of opportunities for growth, right? Because that's where that growth opportunity comes from, saying, well, I might want to do something that's a little bit more sophisticated. I might want to do more personalization, more recommendations, some cross-sell, some creative stuff. So as soon as you, and that's what you need to do to grow. So as soon as you start thinking that, well, you've gone beyond that basic, and if you don't have the platform, then you're actually limiting your ability to grow, because you've made this decision on the technology. So I think missed opportunities, and then limiting your ability to grow are things that those are going to be implications of not having the right platform.
Yeah.
Jen, you want to build on that?
And I think what's interesting what you said there, Robin, because it's like you can see how quickly that happens. Like that light bulb goes off where it's like, well, can we do this? Well, what if we did this? And then all quickly within 6 months, you're like, well, no, we can't do that because of X, Y, Z, or because you don't have this, or you don't have that, or the platform that you're working with has limited capabilities in that area, or let's call the developer and see if we can get that on a customization roadmap. And so I think that does happen quite often. And then you kind of just default, and those initiatives or those things get put on the back burner, which also prevents you from having this kind of really testing and measuring mindset. So I definitely think the light bulb goes off pretty quick. But I also think that, like, around the small broker, I think it's not really small or big, right? I don't think anyone said that, but I just want to point out that, even these small brokers who are, they've got big growth goals, or they've got a kind of a digital mindset. Like, there's a lot of complexities there as well, even if they've got a very small book, but they've got big plans. So
yeah. And those strategies may be very similar, they are very similar across the industry. I mean, we maintain a list of strategies, as you guys know, that we pull from across, lead generation and sort of top of funnel, middle of funnel, and customer marketing for the insurance industry. So the strategies are really remain the same. And as they want to deploy those strategies to the uniqueness of their business, whether it's a product or one of the segments that you talked about, Chris, that's really where, without that foundation of a system that can do that, where you run into the roadblocks where,
Yeah.
like you said, you're cutting a change request to a developer that built a system, or you're doing a lot of manual work effort delegated to a junior to pull another list and pull another segment. And it's very much a one-off initiative rather than something that is being built as a foundation in your business. So yeah, there's certainly a whole lot there. If we go back to some of the other things that you brought up, Jen, around, privacy, compliance, and deliverability. I mean, I think this is a big one when you're looking at selecting a system, that, in 2020, it's not that straightforward. Like email is got its own issues and complexity, and you've put SMS on here as well. So why don't we talk a little bit about, the complexities around that, go around a bit on the privacy and compliance piece and deliverability.
Yeah, so I think, it is a big one. I think one of the things about these best of breed platforms is they're only going to allow you to do they're only going to allow you to mess up so much. I think when you're just starting out, you really don't know what you're doing. There's just so many nuances, from subject titles to rendering images properly.
You mean they protect the average user?
They protect the average user. Yeah. So so when you don't know what you're doing, or it's your first kick at the cat, I don't want to name other platforms here, but you could probably you can. I mean, we've had customers come to us that reputations are completely shot. And you cannot come back from that reputation very easily at all. So you can actually do a lot of damage just in some of these platforms that are just going to let you to hit send. You're not able to monitor things like deliverability. You're not able to catch your subject titles and how big your images are rendering, and your logos, like, the size of the moon. And it's all of those little nuances. And then your brand is going out to these customers, and, that's just one kind of basic that doesn't put your brand out there in a good way. So.
And I don't know if you strategically put that as the first one on your checklist, Jen, but to me, I think that's absolutely the right place for it to be, because these, if those things are not in place, anything else that you do, you're not going to get that email or that text into the inbox or into the phone of your desired your customer, or any kind of a lead. So these are these basic things. They're really complex, not just in insurance, across all industries. Most people, even within the marketing teams, don't have that level of expertise. And that's the kind of thing you wanted to say, you know what, I've got that covered. So I know that I've got a platform that is going to make sure that all of those things are checked off, maintained, and being done so continuously, so that we can go to that next step, which is really, crafting the right message or the strategy. But you're assured that you're 99% of your messages are getting to your intended recipient.
Yeah, a couple of things there. In this industry, okay, like I don't think that anyone would be shocked to hear that a lot of the base platforms, the VMS platforms out there, are a little long in the tooth. Yes, there are some programs that they're capable of managing policy. There's a GL on there, which is great. But a lot of times, I think a lot of the leadership in these organizations that have been around for a while, maybe even second generation, are asking questions like, can we get to our existing customer base? And it's like, well, here's the problem, is that we can't get data out of it. Or, hey, here's the problem, we only have like half of our policies have actual email addresses attached to them. Or we have and then it's like, well, I guess we'll just give up, and we can't sort of get into that. So the thing about a marketing automation platform is that it can help, as a part of a solution, can help to kind of activate that existing base. So for example, your existing base has probably the most gold in it, because yeah, you can go out and find some new business and stuff, but your existing customers know you, they know that you're a good provider, they are probably going to listen if you got out to them. So the question is, how can you get that sort of value out of your BMS when it is kind of like not easy to kind of get that stuff out? So it's like that layer of the marketing automation can activate that for you and can help you grow that sort of part of it. So yeah, email is sort of like that linchpin that can sort of give you access to all that gold that's sitting in your BMS.
Well, I think this is a good. I think we'll pluck a couple off here because I don't think we'll be able to talk at length about all of them. But I think this is a good place to talk about the integration flexibility that there's two things, building on what Chris said, that tend to come up around this industry, and one of them is that the data's in the BMS, and we'll almost make decisions on products that can access that data, or there's a perceived access to the data piece. So we'll kind of overlook all of the downstream functionalities of the product because it's got the integration. So that's kind of one piece that happens a lot. And the other piece that happens a lot is that while we really want to be careful about the rekeying, we don't want to be having to deal with rekeying. And I think part of what's often missed out in this integration kind of conversation is that with a more capable system, or what you would call, I guess, the market leading marketing automation platforms that are out there, and I think this is sort of getting around now, but it's still not well known, is that they do have these integration capabilities already there, and actually tying into data. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tying into data is not something that is as difficult as it used to be. Certainly when you've got organizations like Goose that pre-map all the BMSs and all the data lists already for you. So Jen, you want to talk a little bit about just kind of overcoming the data piece and some of the flexibility that's out there?
Yeah, so I put that in there because we work with insurance providers that have what we would say the best case scenario integration, and then brokers or your customers like you say, Chris, who are like, oh, I guess we can't do it then because we don't have this direct integration, right? So we've tried small pieces, and and what I see that's common, so even on the companies that have, let's say, the best case scenario integration, so that means there's like an access to a CRM, it's like a really good scenario, right? And it's still even if you have all the integration and you don't have a platform that can handle all of the segmentation and all of the audiencing and all of the if and and statements and writing custom programs, like not custom in terms of development, but custom inside the system, it's like you could have all the best integration in the world and you're still going to fall flat on that campaign side if you don't have the proper, if you don't have the proper system deploying and setting up your campaigns. So it's sort of like, and we kind of ran into a situation, I remember about a year ago, where there was this direct integration, right? Real time on a broker, on a BMS to a marketing automation. And when you actually look under the hood, it's like 4 fields, right? And then you think to yourself, okay, that was a big API project for 4 fields that's going to power one use case. We could have done that with no customization API. So I think, like, I don't know if that's answering your question, just in terms of like how the other thing is too, is that like, and I think this is going beyond the basics, but the third party integrations that these platforms have, they have ecosystems of plugins that you can pull off the shelf if you're trying to, do a fun holiday campaign or something like that. I think, that's kind of more on the enterprise level that we deal with that, not so much on the smaller insurance providers, but there's just so much out of box that can be done around that topic that I would say that we don't run into those roadblocks as much as we used to 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I think the point about what does integration actually mean, and I think it almost feels like a magic word sometimes when a principal hears the word integration. There's a certain, they want to believe that it's like, oh, that means this, but it may only mean 4 fields, as Jen said. It may only mean very little value actually when you sort of into it, you know. So I think sort of exploring what is the game, like what is the intention, what is that sort of overall thing before you sort of start digging into what what a particular provider means by integration.
But I think that's, sorry, go ahead, Robin.
No, I was just going to say the key with integration is really flexibility, right? Because there's what you want to do today, right? I need those 4 fields to power one specifically one marketing use case. Well, hopefully there are very few providers saying, I've got such tight blinders on, I can only see what I'm doing today. You need to be able to look at least, for the next 6 months, the next year. You might not know what you're doing exactly in 5 years, and that's okay. But it's important to be able to say, well, I have this objective, this goal, this strategy, and I need an integration that's flexible enough that can allow me to do what I want to do at least for the next couple of years. And these platforms with the flexibility of the integration, the volume of fields, the different types of fields, the different sources of data that they can bring in, I would say that for most providers, that's going to be more than enough for the next couple of years. And keep in mind that these marketing automation platforms, the best of breed ones, they are constantly adding new integration opportunities, right? So they are looking at that 3 to 5 year perspective, exactly. So, before an insurance provider, you can get to a point where, oh, I'm limited. These platforms have already gone ahead and added those integrations. And that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah. So, the message around integration, I think what I'm hearing is that you may have a limited integration, but you have some level of out-of-box integration with whatever you've found as an automation solution, as a air quotes automation solution. But even if you had let's say you had a robust set of fields, you may not have the upstream or the downstream, however you want to look at it, within the actual platform that you're working with to take advantage of all that, right? So, and truly take advantage of it by the slice and dicing. If you have complexities in your book and you want to carve people off and suppress certain groups and send a totally different piece over here because it makes more sense to us, and really just becomes treating the whole program much more at a strategic level than just the ability to execute something within the system. So I think that's really where the message around the integration piece on your blog is that, just having that kind of flexibility, but also have all the segmentation and tools and personalization to actually leverage it. I think we'll wrap up with cost effectiveness, because I think, it touches a little bit about what you mentioned, Robin, and I'll start with Chris on this one. Just around, the larger, the more best of breed, if you want to call them that, providers having an R&D budget, having a roadmap. But I almost think that at times there's a cost profile, or there's some kind of view that maybe these systems are just out of our range in terms of cost. So, and that's something that we should try to talk about, because I think they are very cost effective, and in some cases they're less than solutions that may be not best of breed. So Chris, you want to start off with that?
That's a great point. So, I think that there is that perception, Mike, where these leading platforms are significantly more expensive than the more entry level ones, and so it's sort of like, oh, those those leading platforms, mid market sort of leaders like Marketo and Pardot and Acton. and HubSpot are like, oh, they're like out of our range, versus sort of like a straight ahead email type program. We are, very, cost conscious of the value that these programs bring. And I'm always surprised by when I walk in and I sort of take a look around what an organization is using, and oftentimes almost like aghast at the amount they're paying for a technology that clearly does not have that ability to grow with an organization's marketing plans the way that Robin was describing there. And it's like, I know that it's just a perception, because when we get it out on the table, it's like, oh, I had no idea. So it's like, I'm not sure if it's up to the marketing automation organizations to kind of get that message out a little bit more clear. I don't know if it's because the organizations have been using these batch and blast programs for so long that it's like they just creeped up every year a little bit more till now they're getting incredibly good sort of return on their subscriptions. But in any event, I think it's really important to sort of get that out on the table early, like the functionality versus the cost. It's actually quite shocking. And so when we get around to sort of, that's generally the most pleasant surprise for our prospects, when they discover, oh, I'm already paying this much for my email program, and for my analysis program, and for my there's like a bunch of stuff. Oh, it's all comes in the one platform. Beautiful. And that sort of simplifies things. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm finding.
Why don't we talk a little bit on instead of the licensing, and that was great because I wanted that to come out. Why don't we go around a little bit on, and we can start with you, Jen, and then end up with Robin on the cost effectiveness of using these systems as it relates to the end user. We made a comment earlier that you can probably simulate a lot of these strategies with, either paying your developer a bunch of money to do the customizations manually, or literally, pulling lists and manually one by one sending all these campaigns out. When we talk a little bit about the cost effectiveness to the average user, average marketing person that can sort of do a heck of a lot with on their own now with a system like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a broker for my whole career up until 2012. So like I always, and trained over, I don't know, 24 people on these platforms. And to me, I think to myself, like, if I can do it, then really anybody can do it. Like, sure, when you get into some of like the bigger, more complex potentially, but that's my true belief. Like, I think they are relatively easy to use. I think like when you have one of your point, Chris, when you've got analytics platform over here and you've got a CMS over, I mean, you're still going to have some of those things, but email platform here and a social platform here, and everything is siloed, and you're learning all of those different platforms versus, putting the elbow grease into one. They're easy to learn. I think the other thing that's interesting to me, kind of just growing up and learning other kind of technology platforms, like, insurance providers have tons of platforms that brokers are expected to learn, and, all of those kinds of, TAM, Epic, like all of those things are also, platforms that need to be learned. But all what HubSpot and Acton and Marketo and Salesforce, they have these learning platforms, that you can literally get up
certified,
to become certified. Like, where else can you actually go and pay $500 and get completely up to speed on marketing automation? I've got now 6 years under my belt, but I think that's fascinating all in itself. Whereas some of these small proprietary providers who's training, then you're then still at the mercy of the development company of who built that software. Whereas these technologies are really enabling you to use the system. And that's what we're all about here at Goose as well. So,
Robin, do you want to talk a little bit about cost effectiveness and maybe sort of scaling up and running kind of automation instead of one-offs?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, if an insurance provider is looking at just the cost of, something that's very basic that just, helps deploy emails versus a marketing automation platform. If they put the two next to each other on their marketing budget line items, yeah, there's going to be a big difference. But you're looking at the cost of the platform. What you're not looking at is the concept of efficiencies. And we keep on hearing, especially from the small and mid-sized brokers, is that we need to be efficient. We need to be able to do more with less. And when you factor that in, about being able to do the basics, scaling up, being able to grow the business, to be more sophisticated, to reach new audiences, introduce new products. So when you add all those factors into that sort of that same, in your budget, then you see that these marketing automation platforms really are the most cost effective to be able to do what these organizations I was going to say want to do, but really it's more like what they need to do in order to grow. So it's critical to, that sort of perspective about the base cost of the platform, but looking at what actually you can do on those efficiencies. They've got to go hand in hand when you're evaluating your investment in the platform.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to leave the podcast. We've got, there's 7 things on the checklist that are on the website that you can go ahead and check that out. Maybe we could link this blog too in the description. And thanks, guys. It was great.
Thanks everyone.
See you next time.
Peace.